はお忙しい中、当事務所主催ウェビナーデータマネジメントハブとしてのルクセンブルクの戦略にご参加くださいまして誠にありがとうございます。冒頭、ルクセンブルク紹介を当事務所のセールスマーケティングマネージャーの中丸直也より日本語でお話しさせていただきます。続いて、データマネジメントハブとしてのルクセンブルクの戦略をルクスイノベーション、デジタルエコノミー国際事業開発部門長のデイビッド・フォイ氏にお話しいただきます。講演は英語ですが、スライドは英語に日本語訳を併記しております。最後に16時35分より質疑応答セッションを行う予定です。タイムスケジュールの説明は以上です。それでは早速、プレゼンテーションを始めさせていただきます。
改めまして、ルクセンブルク貿易投資事務所の中丸と申します。ちょっとですね、秘密道具を取り出しますので、少々お待ちください。はい、こちらはですね、EU 市場へのどこからでもドアです。ルクセンブルクはあらゆる国の人にオープンで、EU の市場への自由なアクセスを可能にする国です。今日はその魅力の一部を簡単にご紹介してまいります。国の概要です。ルクセンブルクの面積は神奈川県ぐらいの大きさです。人口は約62万人です。ルクセンブルクへのアクセスについてですが、ヨーロッパのほぼすべての主要都市とフライトでつながっています。またパリからは高速鉄道 TGV で約2時間でアクセス可能です。ルクセンブルクは EU の創設メンバー国ですので、複数の EU 機関や組織がございます。元欧州委員長のユンカー氏はもともと長くルクセンブルクの首相を務められておりました。またルクセンブルクは国民1人当たりの言語数が 3.6 カ国語で欧州1位です。ドイツ語、フランス語に加え英語も堪能です。実際ルクセンブルクで複数の人が集まってミーティング等をする場合には、どの言語が一番全員にとっていいのかというのを探りながら決めていくというような風景も見られます。こちらはルクセンブルクに拠点、子会社を持つ日本企業様の一覧です。大手信託銀行様や保険会社様、また ICT の分野では楽天様やビットフライヤー様が欧州本社をルクセンブルクに置いています。また野村総研様、NTT 様、富士通様などは子会社やグループ会社を通じて活動されています。それ以外にも、例えばファナック様はルクセンブルクに欧州本社と、また欧州の中央ディストリビューションセンターを設置し、ヨーロッパでのビジネスをルクセンブルクから展開されています。他にも宇宙ベンチャーの iSpace などが15名から20名ぐらいの規模でルクセンブルクに拠点を構え、国立研究機関等と共同研究をしたり、欧州でのビジネスディベロップメントを行っています。もともとルクセンブルクは現在ルクセンブルクは世界第2位のファンドセンターで、金融と関連産業で GDP の約 25% を占めています。その金融セクターの発展が国内外の通信網やデータセンターなどのインフラの発展、また関連する法案の整備などを後押ししてきた歴史があります。今では世界的にも高い評価を得ており、例えば Amazon や楽天、アリペイなど世界的な ICT 企業がルクセンブルクに欧州本社を置いています。また EU のスーパーコンピューター推進プロジェクト機関であるユーロ HPC もルクセンブルクに本部を置いています。国立ルクセンブルク大学ではサイバーセキュリティに特化した研究センターを設立し、さまざまな企業と研究や実証実験等を行っています。また e レジデンシーや e ガバメントで日本でも大変有名なエストニアの行政データのコピーデータですね。コピーデータを保管するためのミラーサイトをルクセンブルクに設置しました。これはデータ大使館と呼ばれ、世界初の試みとなっています。さらに近年ますます注目を集めている NVIDIA 社がヨーロッパで初めて ルクセンブルク国立大学や研究機関と共同で AI ラボを設置しました。他にも 5G 環境を想定してフランスやドイツと国境をまたぐ自動運転のための、自動運転技術のためのテストベッドなど面白い試みも生まれています。ルクセンブルクは昨年データ駆動イノベーション戦略を発表いたしました。こちらの戦略のオリジナルのレポートはこの QR コードからご覧いただけます。で、サーキュラーエコノミーへの移行を目指し、ICT の技術を基盤として6つの優先セクターを定めました。具体的にはインダストリー 4.0、4.0、エコテック、ヘルステック、ロジスティクス、スペースは宇宙ですね。そして、金融サービス。これら6つのセクターをデジタルイノベーションを推進していくために、ビジョンを策定、今後の取り組みを発表したものになります。今日のこれからゲストに行っていただくプレゼンテーションも、こちらの戦略が土台にあります。で、本日のゲストを紹介させていただきます。ルクセンブルク経済省のイノベーション推進機関であるルクスイノベーションより、デジタルエコノミー国際事業開発部門長のダビッド・フォイ氏にお越しいただきました。ダビッド・フォイ氏には、国の ICT 政策、そしてまたスタートアップエコシステムなどについてもプレゼンテーションいただきます。今日はその後、10分から15分 Q&A のお時間を設けておりますので、何かご質問ある方はそちらで、ご質問いただければと思います。で、最後に5分、おそらく4時50分ぐらいからだと思いますが、来週開催される ICT スプリングヨーロッパと、またその関連のウェビナーについて、私の方から最後また告知させていただきます。今日のウェビナーを通じて、日本の事業会社様、またスタートアップ企業様が、ルクセンブルクを将来 R&D の拠点、あるいはデータマネジメント、データを使ったビジネスの拠点としてご検討いただくような、そんなきっかけになればと願っています。それでは本日よろしくお願いいたします。So David, I finished my presentation. So could you please start?
Sure. Thank you very much for that introduction. I think you've covered pretty much everything that I want to cover today, so that's my job so much easier. Thank you so much. So good morning from Luxembourg, everybody. I'm going to spend a moment now to walk you through Luxembourg strategy, the digital innovation strategy, which is hand in hand with the data economy that we're building here. And to do that, I think what we need to first look at is where we came from. So we saw in the introduction, Luxembourg is 600,000 people, 2,500 square kilometers of space. It's quite a small country. We don't have any natural resources. So right in the back of, right in the beginning of this slide, for example, 1850, Luxembourg was very much agriculture. Then throughout the years, Luxembourg has had to reinvent itself. It's almost a startup country. Diversification through reinvention, and as I say, diversification of the economy. There were some key points in here. The first one, obviously, is the steel industry, which goes back to the 1900s, which is still very, very active in Luxembourg today. The second one being the financial sector, Luxembourg being the second largest funds under management behind the US. But also this was the start of, I would say, the digital age as well, as far as we see it today. So we're aware of a company called SES Astra. That's a Luxembourgish company. They launched their first satellite in 1980. Nobody wanted to insure it. Nobody believed in the future of satellite technology. So Luxembourg government accepted to insure the first launch, which equated to approximately 5% of GDP at the time. And it is what it is today, a global success. So from the year 2000 onwards and up until today, we're really focusing on these priority sectors, as we saw previously in the introduction. And I will go through them today and explain what Luxembourg is doing strategically, not only to address each one of those sectors, but also the interactions that those sectors have with each other. So diversification of any economy is the success of that economy. If anybody is sitting on one specific industry and for whatever reason that industry fails or pivots, then the country's economy is obviously in an issue. If we look at the GDP today that's generated by the financial sector, that could be an issue for Luxembourg if anything was to happen to that sector one day. And I think specifically through the last few months with the COVID crisis, a lot of questions are being asked across all sectors. I'm not specifically looking at one sector, but everything. So we really need to look and analyze every sector that we have and see how we can best make it sustainable in the future. So our digital innovation strategy today can be sitting on these three distinct pillars. The first one, boosting and assuring digital infrastructure capacity. In order to provide digital services, then we need a foundation on which to place them. So for example, today Luxembourg is home to 40% of European Tier 4 data centers, Tier 4 being the highest certification in availability and security. All of that is green energy that's being pumped into there. Data centers by themselves are of no use to anybody as such. They need to be connected. So Luxembourg today is also connected to all of the major European cities, so the European hubs, Amsterdam, London, Frankfurt, etc. And around that as well, also the national infrastructure is being worked on very, very strongly. So we're almost at the end of a fiber to the home project at the moment, where each household in Luxembourg will have access to fiber broadband. The second pillar is really addressing intellectual property and the regulations around doing digital business. So we're very lucky in Luxembourg that our government not only understands the business of what's happening, but also they understand the technology that's behind it. And normally we see regulation as something that slows down innovation. But in this case, we're very much using regulation to accelerate innovation. A few examples there are data reversal legislation that came into place. We have data embassies here now. We have a couple of countries that back up their governmental data to our data centers here. And soon there'll be a data sharing, let's call it data sharing framework, which will entail how companies can share their data, how they can monetize their digitalization efforts. The third pillar that we see here is really to do with the support that is given to companies and startups in order to test their technologies, in order to have support in the research and development of their technologies, not just with physical infrastructures, which we'll go into slightly later, but also really pure research through the research institutes that we have in Luxembourg. And again, we'll touch on that just slightly afterwards. Now, we saw a version of this slide previously on the introduction. These are very much our 6 priority sectors. It doesn't mean that there are only sectors that we're looking at, but they're very much the priority. This is where we see that there's really a role for Luxembourg to play. There's a potential for growth and sustainability, again, in these sectors. A few examples of projects that are going on here. If we look at Industry 4.0 in Luxembourg, we have the European headquarters of Goodyear. Now, Goodyear have 2 innovation centers, one of them in the US and one of them in Luxembourg, and it's been here for a very long time. They are going through a project right now with our research institute, so the Luxembourg Institute of Science and Technology. This is being supported by the Ministry of the Economy to build a Industry 4.0 factory. So a fully automated robotic factory. Hopefully FANUC will play a role in there, but that's up for them to decide how to go forward. if we look at the ecotech, we've linked ecotech and smart mobility together. Here, again, looking at the test environments, we've developed an automotive test bed where companies can come and test their devices and their communication links. This is a test bed between Luxembourg, France, and Germany. And so we can test technology, we can take the data, we can collate the data, but also it's going to be used for looking at cross-border regulations. That's something that's very important today, especially within Europe. I mean, you see Europe, the size of it, and from Luxembourg, I can get into a car and within 20 minutes, I can be in France or Germany or Belgium. So cross-border regulation is also very, very important. We look at space. iSpace, a Japanese company, is very active in this space. It's a young sector, but it's also a sector that's probably the most growing today. We mentioned ICT Spring earlier. We have also the Space Forum that will be held at the same time in the same building as it happens. Logistics, again, if you look at the geographic location of Luxembourg, I think we have a great role to play in logistics, not only in air cargo. So Cargolux is the leading European cargo airline. They service 90 different countries today, but also from road traffic, road and train, with logistics hubs being set up. Just one thought on, we spoke about cross-sectorial projects, or how we link them together, not just through data, but also through collaboration, I would say, is in the health tech. So we have a young startup here called Molecular Plasma Group, MPG, who are active in fixing molecules to surfaces that normally wouldn't be adhesive. So for example, if you take a frying pan, it's got Teflon on it, you can't stick anything to it. But by using this plasma process, it activates the surface, and then you can adhere molecules to it. So from an industry point of view, that's very interesting, but also from a health tech point of view, they're looking at right now fixing antiviral and antimicrobial substances to personal protection equipment. So the PPE, the masks that we're all having to wear today. So not only do they protect from projections, but also they would neutralize any microbes or any viruses that were to sit on them. All of that, of course, is sitting on an IT infrastructure. Again, you know, we're always looking at how to provide services, and sometimes we forget what's happening behind. We all log on to websites and we surf and we buy things online, but we have to remember behind there is an infrastructure, there is a data center. So we spoke about the data centers in Luxembourg being Tier 4 certified, which makes them the highest level of security and availability. We spoke briefly about the networks. The electricity in Luxembourg, so this is getting into the nuts and bolts of it, is one of the most secure in Luxembourg, in Europe. We'll see that in a slide afterwards. And also one of the cheapest, because Luxembourg, we don't actually generate our own electricity. You can see that from this slide. We buy that in from countries and we buy it in advance, so we get future pricing on there as well. So that makes sure that you can see on here, the price of electricity is 6 cents per kilowatt hour, which makes it about 11 cents kilowatt hour when it gets to the data center. And you can see the reliability. We're the most reliable grid in Europe. We also have the Luxembourg Internet Exchange. So this is for peer-to-peer networking, mainly for streaming services or media services, but it can be used pretty much for anything. So most European countries have one. So we have the Luxembourg Internet Exchange, there's the Amsterdam Internet Exchange, the Frankfurt Internet Exchange, et cetera, which allows very fast connectivity across Europe as well. And that's linked in with the low latency that we can see in this slide here. Low latency obviously being a prerequisite for synchronous data applications, but also, you know, today we're sitting here on Zoom. I am nowhere near Japan today. I'm sitting right in the center of Europe. and we have a perfect connection, and I hope everybody can hear me. But that is due to this connectivity that we have here and the low latency that we can boast from there. So a few of the key projects that are happening today. One of them is the Euro HPC project. This is Europe trying to catch up with Japan with the supercomputer projects. So this is a €1 billion project that has been kicked off by the EU to place high performance computing nodes in European countries. Each node will have a specific focus, be it health tech, be it automotive, be it whatever the focus would be. So Luxembourg is actually heading up this project European-wide. So the main project coordination is happening in Luxembourg. Hopefully this will be online by sometime next year. It's taken a bit of time due to the recent COVID issues, but hopefully we'll get over that shortly. I apologize for the noise that might be going on behind me if you can hear that. Unfortunately, that's out of my hands. So cybersecurity obviously is a big issue today with all of the data that we're generating. AI, so Luxembourg has recently signed, well actually last year, signed an agreement with NVIDIA to open an artificial intelligence research laboratory. And there are some fantastic projects going through there. And I think we'll touch on those a little bit later. The research institutes today, we have the national, so the National University, the University of Luxembourg, having a research arm for security, reliability, and trust. They're very active in research projects today and open innovation. And of course, the Luxembourg Institute of Science and Technology. The incubators and accelerators we'll touch on just slightly afterwards. So while we were talking about cybersecurity, this was just a quick dive into the cybersecurity of Luxembourg. Today we have 304, so this was the last count, 304 companies that are active in cybersecurity. Approximately 24% of those have cybersecurity as a core business. So that's all they do. They provide cybersecurity consultancy, products, services, whatever it might be. 68 of those are startups, which have joined the ecosystem very, very recently. So this is all put under the hood of a private-public partnership called SMILE, which is short for Security Made in Luxembourg. And so they provide services not only to the local community, but also to the international community as well. When we look at innovation in Luxembourg, we've just recently opened the Luxembourg Digital Innovation Hub. So this, again, it's a European initiative to provide digital innovation centers across Europe that will help the local community. So today, our Digital Innovation Hub is there to help Luxembourgish companies go through digitalization processes, not only by supporting them on how to do things, what to do things, and what is possible, but also reaching out to other European hubs to find talent, to find technologies, or to find innovative processes that we can import. So it's very much a European-wide sharing network. When we talk about research and development infrastructure, again, that is the startup hubs, the incubators, but also, again, the research centers. And that couples with the next point, which is the government grants. So within Luxembourg, there are some very attractive government grants for research and development, for startups in Luxembourg. ICT Spring will have a Pitch Your Startup, which is one of them, where there are cash prizes to be had. And there are several other ones. We also have the Fit for Start program, which I will touch on afterwards. But there are some very interesting aid packages that LUXINNOVATION would be happy to help you with if you're interested in going through some of those. All of them equity free. So yeah, we can talk about that going forward. When we look at so Luxembourg is a test environment. We say Luxembourg, there's very little domestic market, which is true outside of financial technologies, but it's an amazing place to come and prepare your product for a European launch. There are many different nationalities here, as we saw. There is many different cultures here. We have access to many different countries as well. And we can do that by also plugging into some of these research institutions that we see here. So we spoke about SNT, which is the research arm of the Luxembourg University. The LCSB, which is more on bioinformation, Luxembourg Institute of Health. LIST is very transversal, the Luxembourg Institute of Science and Technology. So you can see from here, they're active in materials, environmental, and IT, but also in space and in fintech and many other different things. And you can see from the university here, 6,000 students from 100 countries. It really is a concentration of ideas and exchange, which is immediately plugged into businesses through networking or through open innovation projects. We spoke about the autonomous driving route. You can see it here. So it goes through Luxembourg, Germany, and France. It has features of pretty much everything that you would ever encounter in a car. Unlimited speed limits in Germany on the Autobahn. There are many speed cameras. So going through France, we have trees, countryside, hills, valleys, tunnels, everything you can think of. And this is an open environment for companies to come and test not only autonomous cars, not only autonomous driving, but also the sensors, the networking protocols, and making that data available to other companies to exploit and to accelerate their businesses. Very quickly on the startup ecosystem. So maybe 5 or 6 years ago, this slide would have been pretty much empty. This is very much a exponentially growing sector today. So startups, there are institutional startup areas. So the House of Startups, for example, that you see on the left is an umbrella for other incubators inside. House of Entrepreneurship will help companies go through the incorporation process, amongst other things. You can see in the center, incubators, accelerators, and innovation hubs. Now, each one of these has a different flavor to it. You can see, for example, Tomorrow Street, that is the incubator from Vodafone. You have one from the University of Luxembourg. You have Loft, which is the Luxembourg House of Financial Technologies. Each one has a different flavor to it. Once you start to look on the right-hand side of here, you can see the events and publications that we have in Luxembourg. I would strongly suggest looking up Startup Luxembourg. There's many publications and social media blogs that are there. You can see on here ICT Spring, which has been spoken about and which will be spoken about again at the end of this session, I believe. And another one to look out for is the Arch Summit. The Arch Summit is very popular now. I think we're in our 3rd year of it, and it's becoming quite a large event as well. And you can see those on this slide also. Just the last word on an acceleration program that we have in LUXINNOVATION. So this is called Fit for Start. There are 2 calls every year. The last call we had just over 300 startups apply. And we will select 80 of those startups who will pitch. Once they've pitched, whoever graduates the pitching will be selected for the program. So there are normally between 10 and 15 IT companies, 5 health tech, and this year we've also added space technologies as well. They will go through a 3-month mentoring and coaching program in Luxembourg. They will receive €50,000 equity-free funding. And if at the end of there they graduate, they meet their milestones and they meet their objectives, they can also qualify for another 100,000 euro of funding, again, from the Ministry of the Economy, and that again is equity free. You can see on here the diversification within the startup sector. There are some well-known names in here. There are some pretty good success stories. There are some that are still starting, if you like, but all of them are looking to reach out internationally for partners, joint ventures, funding, obviously clients as well. And I realize it's a little small, but I can share these slides, or our trade investment office can share these slides with you following this presentation. So with that, I hope I didn't speak too quickly. I hope that the noise next door wasn't too embarrassing. And I would like to pass back to the studio, I guess we say.
Thank you very much, David. Thank you very much for very valuable input. So we shall move to the Q&A session from now. 皆様、これよりですね、Q&A のセッションに、移らせていただきたいと思います。ご質問ある方は、挙手、Zoom の中の挙手のボタンを押していただければ、我々の方で直接ご質問いただくことも可能ですし、Q&A のこのコラムにタイプいただければですね、日本語でタイプいただいて全然構いませんので、私の方で英語で、訳させていただきます。では、ぜひご遠慮なくこの機会にですね、ダビッド・フォイ氏に、聞いてみたいこと、今日のプレゼンテーションのことでも、また別のことでもいいので、ぜひご遠慮なくお聞きいただければと思います。ちょっとまだ、今のところは手が上がっていないようですので、So, David, while we were ちょっと私からsorry ちょっと私からですね、皆様のご質問を待っている間に、ちょっと質問をあらかじめちょっと私も疑問にも思っていた質問をちょっと聞いてみたいと思います。So, David, while we were waiting for the questions from audiences, I have my personal question that about the NVIDIA's joint AI lab. Is it already activated, or what kind of research activity are planned for the future?
The answer is yes. It is activated. It was launched on the 12th of March of last year, so 2019. At the moment, there are 3 research experts from NVIDIA and several from the University of Luxembourg who are involved with these research projects. If I may, I'm just going to share a couple of slides with you. It'll take just 2 seconds so you can see. I hope you can see that there. Let's go down. So projects today obviously are within the autonomous driving. So these are computer vision projects. Obviously with NVIDIA, it's a lot of graphic and computer vision software. This is for neural training time estimator. So if you were to set up a machine learning, this would give you an estimation of the time for results. Unfortunately, I'm not an expert, so I can't tell you what this is. But again, it's again computer vision related. Computer vision again here, and what's happened. So those are completed projects, right? These projects here are the ones that are going on today. So this is self-awareness for cars, which again, it's a computer vision. What else do we have here? This is for health tech. So health applications to find out rogue cells. Here is for, this is a project that's going on in France to analyze the utility grids. Here is to find, so a newt is like a little lizard thing. This is to a system to trap them, count them, and see if they're male or female. So this is for endangered species, which could also be rolled out across other areas as well. So today, yes, it's very active. There are some amazing projects going on. There are also projects happening that maybe they don't want so much publicity for them at the moment, if I can say it that way. Not secret, but you know, they want to keep it a little bit to the side until they have results on them. So things like space exploration and things like that as well.
Understood. Thank you very much. Let me translate briefly to the audiences. 私からの質問として、ですね、NVIDIA 社が、ルクセンブルクに設立した AI ラボについて、すでに、どのような活動を行っているのか、また今後どのような研究プロジェクトを予定しているのかということをお聞きしました。で、ダビッド・フォイ氏が、先ほど、プレゼンテーション資料を NVIDIA 社のですかね、ちょっと共有いただきましたけれども、ですね、すでにもう3月に、発足して、実際 NVIDIA 社から3名のリサーチャーが来て、それにそのルクセンブルク側の研究者も一緒になって、その主にコンピュータービジョンや自動運転の分野での、R&D を行っているということです。で、自動運転とかだけではなくてですね、そのコンピュータービジョンの技術を使って、ディープラーニングの、そのヘルステックとかですね、そういった部分でのアプリケーション等の研究もやっているとのことでした。で、ちょっとまたそんなに公表はできないような内容も、今進行している、非常に興味深いプロジェクトも進行しているということです。はい。ちょっとこのような形でリアクトさせていただきますが、一つ今、ご質問いただきましたので、EU の他の国々に比べ、ルクセンブルクにはフィンテックでどのようなアドバンテージがありますか？制度、人材、大学や研究組織で著名なものがありましたらお教えくださいということで、ちょっとこちらの質問を聞いてみたいと思います。So, David, we received a question about the fintech so comparing to the other European countries, what kind of advantage do Luxembourg have in the area of fintech in terms of system, human resource, research and development, those kind of, if you have any those kind of examples, please let us know. That's the question.
So it's a difficult one because I obviously can see what's happening in Luxembourg. I'm aware of what's happening in other jurisdictions. But I would say I know what's happening here. So to compare it would be kind of difficult. However, saying that, I would say one of the benefits of a fintech in Luxembourg is that all of the banks are already present here. When I say all of them, let's say most of the banks are present here. It's a very vibrant financial center here, which means that access to knowledge is going to be a very short route to take. We mentioned during the slides the Luxembourg House of Financial Technologies. So this is our fintech hub within Luxembourg, which is an incubator, accelerator, if you like, which is linked very closely to Luxembourg for Finance, which is the institution here who federates all of the banks together. I would say the fact that there is so much work and so much financial institution within Luxembourg, the talent pool is very concentrated as well. So access to talent is quite simple. Access to the regulatory body is also very simple. Luxembourg being very small, you can speak very easily to even to the Minister of Finance or the Minister of Economy. So the route to regulation is, I wouldn't say it's easier, but it's shorter than most European countries. And again, it's a place to come to be able to test those technologies that you have, and then use the European fintech passporting, if you like, to have the regulation or have that certified in other European countries.
Okay, thank you very much. ですね、また要約させていただきますと、ルクセンブルクはもともと世界第2位のファンドセンターで、大きな金融セクターがありますので、 銀行をはじめ、多くの金融機関がすでにルクセンブルクに拠点を持っています。そのため、その金融セクターの知識へのアクセスが非常に容易です。また、それに伴い人材へのアクセスも非常に容易です。さらに、その中でこのプレゼンテーションの中でもあったロフト・ルクセンブルクハウス・オブ・フィナンシャル・テクノロジーという、こちらはそのフィンテックの、インキュベーションであり、ハブなんですけれども、こちらには、私が把握している限りでも、200社近いスタートアップが、集っており、このハブに来れば、もうすでにその銀行、金融機関をはじめ、そのレギュレーターであったり、スタートアップであったり、関係者とすぐにネットワーキングができるという、その小さな国ならではの、強みがあります。で、また、規制当局に関してもですね、簡単とは言いませんけれども、ルクセンブルクは小さな国ですので、非常にコミュニケーションが取れる。すぐにですね、新しいフィンテックというのは新しいテクノロジーとそれに伴うやはり規制というのが、表裏一体となっていると思いますけれども、そういったすぐ相談できるというそういう環境が整っていると思いますということです。I think we want to receive one more question that did you see the chat box? So let's receive one more question about the data center. About the data embassy. What are the decisive points for Luxembourg to become the host country of the data embassy of Estonia?
For the data embassy, it's very much this trusted data hub. So there's actually 2 points. The first one is the quality of the infrastructures that we have here. So as we said before, tier 4 data centers, 99.998% availability. All of them are underground bunkers, very difficult to get to. So from a data security point of view, the data is very secure. Secondly, from a political and regulatory standpoint, politically, Luxembourg is very, very stable. There's very little chance of something happening in Luxembourg that would endanger the political situation and as such possibly allow access to areas that shouldn't be accessed. So when we talk about a data embassy, the room within the data center has embassy status. So it's like sovereign territory of Estonia. There's also Monaco as well now as a data embassy. And this shows the agility as well of the government and the people making the regulations, in that they said, this is something that we want to look into. It's something that some countries are aware it might be an issue of keeping a backup of their governmental data. Let's pass a regulation that allows this to happen. And that was done very, very quickly. Again, this is an example of the government understanding what's happening and taking steps to accelerate the business rather than to slow it down.
Okay, thank you. David, are you able to describe some example of what kind of regulation are you talking about about the preservation of the government data
So in this case, it's simply saying that this room within the data center is sovereign territory of Estonia.
I see. So
like
an embassy. Yeah,
it really is an embassy situation. Absolutely.
Okay, thank you very much. ですね、こちらのデータ大使館についてですが、2つ、ルクセンブルクが選ばれたポイントがあります。で、1つは、すでにご説明差し上げたように、インフラストラクチャー、高品質なインフラストラクチャーです。ティア4のデータセンターが多くあり、非常に、それらティア4のデータセンターは地下深くにあり、セキュリティという面で、担保されているという、担保されています。で、もう一つは、 政治的また規制のことです。で、政治は、ルクセンブルクの政治はとても安定しています。で、これは非常にその何か大切なデータを預ける上で、非常に大切なことです。で、もう一つはそのレギュレーション。その国の行政データですから、簡単にその国にアクセスされては困るということで、それをですね、バーチャルなデータ大使館ということで、そのデータにはですね、ルクセンブルクであっても、そのアクセスできないような形で法律上を担保するという、そのような法律を制定して、これらの受け入れを可能にしたという、そのような回答でした。はい、すいません。それではちょっとお時間来て、しまいましたので、ちょっとまだCOVID の件なども質問いただいてるんですけど、ちょっとまたですね、一旦 Q&A は打ち切らせていただいてですね、またもしご質問あれば別途我々の投資事務所にですね、ご遠慮なくメールいただければと思いますので、はい、すいません。ありがとうございます。So, David, thank you very much. I'll move to the next my presentation.
Thank you.
最後にですね、こちらの、ルクセンブルクのその ICT のですね、ICT セクターの最先端を肌で感じられる、ルクセンブルクの看板のイベントですね、テックカンファレンス、ICT スプリングヨーロッパについてちょっと簡単に告知させていただきます。で、こちらはルクセンブルクを代表するテック&宇宙ビジネスイベントで、通常はイベントタイトルの通り、春に、毎年5月に、開催され、500社以上、5000名以上が来場する、欧州でも有数のテックカンファレンスです。で、今年はですね、コロナの影響で9月15日、16日に後ろ倒ししての開催になりました。そして、デジタルでの開催です。で、今年はですね、フィンテック、AI、サイバーセキュリティ、宇宙、あとデジタルサプライチェーンと5つのテーマに分かれて、賞金5万ユーロのですね、ピッチコンテストなど、サイドイベントもございまして、これらのカンファレンスとサイドイベントが並行して行われる形になっています。で、ルクセンブルク貿易投資事務所では、2012年から、日本の海外展開を目指すスタートアップ企業に、無料の展示ブースを提供してまいりました。で、2012年から今まで50社以上のスタートアップ企業に参加いただいています。で、今年、無事、経済省での選考を勝ち抜いて出展するスタートアップ企業様は3社いらっしゃいます。一つは人工生命 AI を開発されているアトラクチャー株式会社。もう一つは次世代 IT 処理基盤ハイブリッドコンピューティングを開発されているトノイ株式会社様。そして、3社目は独自の産業用小型ドローン開発をされているリベラウェア様です。で、私もぜひこの3社が今年この ICT スプリングをきっかけに欧州展開のきっかけをつかんでいただけるように、楽しみに、しておりますし、支援していくつもりです。で、他にもアストロスケール創業者の岡田 CEO が登壇するラウンドテーブルなど魅力的なプログラムが満載です。そこで、今回デジタル開催ということで日本にいながら参加できますので、当事務所では来週急遽オンライン座談会を開催することに決めました。で、こちらはですね、1時間のプログラムとなっておりまして、ルクセンブルク貿易投資事務所と訪れるバーチャル ICT スプリングということでですね、去年 ICT スプリングに参加いただいた方から、ゲストをお呼びしてですね、ICT スプリングの印象であったり、あとは今年の見どころのプログラムなどを伺ったりですね、そして実際にカンファレンス会場や、スタートアップの展示ブース、またピッチコンテストもこの時間帯に行われますので、ピッチコンテストなどもちょっと一緒に Zoom で画面共有しながら訪れてみようという、私たちにとっても初めての取り組みであり、非常にカジュアルなイベントです。現在絶賛参加募集中ですので、詳しくは、当事務所のホームページをご覧ください。で、こちらの座談会の参加有無にかかわらずですね、今日ウェビナーにご参加いただいた皆様には、ルクセンブルク経済省の ICT スプリングご招待コードを、ご提供させていただきます。で、こちらのコードを、チケット申し込みサイトで入れていただきますと、 通常300ユーロのスタンダードチケット、こちらはそのカンファレンスのライブストリーミングだけではなくて、そういったネットワーキングやそのスタートアップのブースなどを訪れることもできます。でこちらをぜひご参加いただければと、ご検討いただければと思います。でさらにもう一つ、無料のプレイイベントをご紹介させていただきます。これは ICT スプリングの前日に、ルクスイノベーションとルクセンブルク経済省が主催するインサイドスタートアップルクセンブルク。これはルクセンブルクで行われるウェビナーです。で、こちらはですね、ルクセンブルクにすでに拠点を置くスタートアップやインキュベーターをゲストに呼んで、スタートアップエコシステムに特化した、今日よりもさらに詳しい内容のプレゼンテーション、またその実際にネットワーキングをして話を聞ける貴重な機会となっております。こちらお申し込みはぜひこの QR コードのサイトから直接行っていただければと思います。はい、以上駆け足となりましたが、私からのイベント告知は終わらせていただきます。
終了のお時間となりました。これをもちまして本日のウェビナーを終了させていただきます。This is the end of our seminar. Thank you very much for your presentation and cooperation, David. 最後までお付き合いいただき誠にありがとうございました。それでは皆様にまたお目にかかれる日を楽しみにしております。失礼いたします。